gentlemen, welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode 527 for the week of, this is Sunday, December 12th when we were recording. My name is Ryan Higgins. I am horribly ill. Not COVID, thank you. But we'll talk about that in a second. Who else is here?
Brock Sager.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
Whoa! Charlie's back.
I'm
Charlie's
clapping for
in
this
the house.
just because it's been so long.
Yeah.
And also, special guest back from the Emerald City himself.
I'm so tempted to say Toby right now, but
Oh,
no.
We know it's not Toby. Toby's return will be like the Kool-Aid Man smashing through the wall when he's back on regularly. It's Lane.
We record in store. He will be there.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Lane, thank you for joining us. You're here to talk all about your adventures. We had Kevin talk about San Diego last week, and now you're here to talk about Emerald City Comic Con. It's going to be a little bit of a different episode. I am really sick. I got something over the weekend. I did a couple at-home COVID tests. Luckily, negative both times. So I'm just the good old-fashioned flu. So I'm actually going to start this podcast, and then I'm going to leave this wonderful, wonderful group of people to talk at you for the next hour or whatever. Hopefully I'm back to normal by next week, because next week should be our amazing, spectacular, our web of episode, the one and only Spider-Man, whatever it's called, No Way Home. No Way Home. I can't keep them straight. Our No Way Home episode of Spider-Man.
Just call it MCU Marvel Team Up number 3.
Yeah. We should be talking all about Spidey next week.
So wait a minute. I will not be the only one who's seen it?
As of right now, I have a friend that got a private screening. So
Okay.
the plan is it will be my return to movie theaters.
Excellent. I
So,
don't have to
yeah.
monologue. Great. Great. I already love it. Whatever you have to say, I'll take anything.
Yeah. I was not intending on going, but it's a very small group of people, all vaccinated, all masked. So I was like, "Yep, I can." Assuming I feel
Omicron
better.
doesn't care, man.
Yeah,
Omicron doesn't care.
I hope I'm all right. But that's the plan. That's the plan for next Monday. Should have our Spidey episode. But that said, we have very unfortunate news to start with, and I definitely did not want to skip this week because I know we all have a lot to say. I know we have a lot to say about this topic. This past week, I believe it was Tuesday. Is that correct?
Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah.
The legendary artist George Perez went on social media, something he doesn't use very, very often. He reactivated his social media accounts to let the world know that he has been diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer, which is a very low survival rate. And his doctors has given him 6 months to a year to live. Rather than undergo, and this is a direct quote here from Comics Beat. Someone's typing very loud. Rather than undergo time-consuming treatment, he will instead spend as much time he has left with family and friends. He also writes that he wants to do one more massive signing event so he could see and hug his fans again. There is a much, much, much longer version that you can read where he goes into his whole, everything about what's happening, what he's going to be doing, his diagnosis. It's on his Facebook page. So if you just search for George Perez, you can find it. We've had during the run of this podcast a not insignificant amount of comic creators die. I don't know that we're once come out and said, I am going to die. This is more than likely I will not see next Christmas, and it's very, very sad when someone you look up to and respect dies, but it's kind of, it happened. There's nothing you can really do. This is almost worse, knowing that someone as talented and as influential as George Perez is, just like, it's coming. It really can't be stopped. I'm just gonna live out the last of my days, and so be it. You know, like, that is it is heartbreaking, because it could be next week, could be 6 months, could be a year. He could survive. It's possible. It's unlikely, but you know, it is possible. George Perez had, so back in early 2010s, he had I believe he broke his hand or his wrist when he was working on Jla Avengers, and that severely limited the rest of the work he could do past that. He was still doing commissions and some individual comics, but very, very minimal. He fully retired back in 2019, related to diabetes, health problems. He's had, I believe, he's either blind or almost blind in one of his eyes, if I'm not mistaken. So drawing is obviously kind of out of the question. That's one of the things he put in his letter, was that, you know, he could still sign his name. So his plan is to, you know, he wants to do some massive signing. I thought I saw something about a mail-in signing and then like one thing in person. You know, obviously this is, you know, we'll find out more about this as time goes on. But just crushingly sad. I've never had the honor of meeting him. And he does cons all the time, but he tends to do East Coast, especially Florida cons, because that's where he lives. I mean, I'm sure he's been in San Diego and stuff, but I just never seen him at a con. So I'm hoping he is able to do at least that one last signing, so people can mail stuff in. That'd be nice. But if not, you know, what are you gonna do? But you know, I think we all can take a few minutes to talk about him. You know, it's I think there's, you know, 3 or 4 things that he is most well known for, and everyone will have probably similar things to say. So I'm not going to walk over what everyone else has to say, but you know, just look at what he brought. His, you know, I was too young for his original run on Avengers at Marvel, and even New Teen Titans, when he was doing that at the start, you know, I was too young, or I wasn't reading comics yet. So for me, and even Wonder Woman was a little before my time reading comics. I've since read them all, but you know, the big thing that he did when he was when I was reading comics, like brand new off the shelf, was his return to Avengers with Kurt Busiek during Heroes Reborn, Heroes Return, which was when they kind of rebooted all the classic Avenger characters back to normal. And that book was, I mean, just phenomenal. The Avengers had kind of it sucked for quite some time prior to that. Sorry, Lane. The Image version of the Avengers was not my favorite. But
Fine with me.
Who even did that? Was that Liefeld?
Yeah, I would say that was Liefeld. I think did the Captain American Avengers, because Wallstrom did Fantastic Four and Iron Man.
In Iron Man, right. But just a return to a classic team, plus a bunch of my New Warriors in it, so that was super cool. You know, things like Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, he didn't do the whole thing, but you know, he started it. Just legendary run after legendary run. And really, I mean, I feel like so much comics is either taking his style and trying to do it, or a reaction to his style, because it is just very classic superhero, extraordinarily detailed. You know, guys like Phil Jimenez that clearly was beyond inspired by him. And yeah, I mean, if there's a more important superhero artist in the last 40 years, there's not many above George Perez. Just very, very depressing. Yeah, I I won't go on for too long. You guys, I'm sure, all have lots to say about this, but yeah, extremely sad news. We'll obviously any updates over the course of the next couple months or years, we'll keep people updated if whatever ends up happening. Yeah, extremely sad news. I really don't, again, I could talk forever about George Perez. I love his stuff, but I'll let you guys go. I'm actually going to step away from the podcast for a little bit here. I'm going to let you guys record. I'm very excited to listen to my own podcast to hear what you guys have to say. So don't ruin this lovely tribute. And if there is signings, if there is events, obviously, he does some big event in Florida. Unlikely any of us will get down there, but we'll definitely let people know what they end up doing. If you're in the area and you want to say goodbye, which is it's just so fucking depressing. Like, it's the most depressing thing ever. But it's gonna be your only shot. So yeah, I'm gonna go down my list here, Kevin. Why don't you take it? You're next on my little list. I'll see you guys on the backside of this podcast.
Okay, we got it.
Okay. Well, I thought we could kind of do a round robin and just talk about first what everybody's first Perez memory is. If you don't remember your exact first time you saw his work, like, what would you guess or what's an early comic that you do remember seeing Perez's work, even if you didn't know who he was?
Probably for me, it would be Infinite Crisis.
Infinite Crisis?
Sorry, Crisis on Infinite Earth. Sorry.
Okay.
I know he did do the alternate covers on Infinite Crisis.
And he had a few pages in Infinite Crisis, right?
Yeah.
With the two Supermen.
Yeah. So, like, I associate like him a lot with like just DC's Crisis, like just those big, huge, pages with just tons of characters on it, or just really amazing, like, just scenes, whether it's like galactic or a battle in a cityscape area. But I think it was just the attention to detail was always there. He didn't leave anything out. Like, he made sure that the whole thing, he went through like a fine-tooth comb. And then you see one of those large like posters that he did of like all of the different characters and stuff, or for like the Jla Avengers, or and you're just like blown away at like, holy crap, that's like a lot of effort. So, but yeah, that's kind of my first is the stuff with like Crisis on Infinite Earths. But yeah.
Charlie, how about you?
I mean, I'm sure I had seen his art before this, but I would say Infinity Gauntlet is kind of where it first kind of struck me. But kind of what was already covered is really what stands out to me about a lot of his work. Is in a lot of ways he pioneered this epic scope of lots of characters all taking part in the same sort of story for me, because he had his hands in all of those sort of classic events which brought together characters, which of course culminated in the Jla Avengers and all that. But I don't really feel like there's anybody else that comes to mind that handles the sheer number of characters as well as he does.
Lane, you have a memory?
I'm trying to think, which you're probably better at this than me about what came first, but obviously the cover for Infinity Gauntlet #1 was a big one. But I also remember for me, I think the first books were the War of the Worlds, or War of the Gods series, or crossover, whatever you want to call that.
The
Wonder Woman mini.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I remember reading those and just being awestruck by the art, just like the magnitude of seeing the gods drawn and the power of the gods. And then, like I said, Perez's his ability was to make hundreds of characters on the screen or on the page, but you could easily identify every single one of them because they each had, unique hairstyles, mannerisms, clothing, but you could see it at all times. It was not just like a huge pile of like black silhouettes all the time.
Yeah. I would say for me, it's his run on JLA in the late 100s. In the 190s, like leading up to 200, there was a big storyline with the JLA, JSA, and the Secret Society of Supervillains. And there was a story with the origin of the Red Tornado with like a giant tornado monster on the cover, if I'm remembering this right. These would have been all around the 60-cent cover price era. And then after that was Teen Titans and, of course, Crisis. And for people who haven't read the new Teen Titans, if you have them in trade, if you have the DC Infinite subscription, if you have them digitally, whatever are the issues, just pick it up, open up New Teen Titans number 1, 2, 3, just flip through. You don't even need to read them. Just flip through and look at Perez, and then look at New Teen Titans like number 20, and then look at 30, and then look at 40, and you will see, for people reading at the time, you can see it in real time, he goes from a very good comic book artist to godhood right there on the page. It's amazing how good he is becoming as those issues go. And then when we hit Crisis, which is 85, that to me is prime George Perez. Like the debate of my childhood that we had with friends was not which character's faster, which character's stronger, which company's better, blah, 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 blah. The only debate that mattered was, who do you like better, John Byrne or George Perez? And there was no choice 3. There just wasn't, because Neil Adams was way before our time. Frank Miller kind of inserted himself in the conversation later with Daredevil. But like when you're really young and first learning artist name, it was those two. And the answer could change like day to day, week to week, depending on what comic you had just read. So Perez, I feel like, has been there my whole reading life. And that's what makes news like this just like, ugh. It's Ryan's, obviously said it all, but
it's gut wrenching.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the good news is that George will now have a chance, whether he has 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, who knows? But he'll now have a chance to hear what he meant to all these people between now and then.
Yeah, he's done a couple interviews. I think it was Games. I saw one on Games Radar or something, and
with Chris. Yeah. Last week,
and
everyone should read that.
Huh?
Everyone should read that.
Yeah, I read a fair amount of it. It was really, really good. But it's kind of just him kind of coming to, like, he's come to terms with it. He knows he's what was it? He's happy that he got to see what impact he had with his announcement, right? And he knows that fans want to know what they can do to help. And for him, it's like he's like, no, he's like, I'm good. My wife is good. If you're gonna do anything, donate. Help somebody. He specifically mentioned like the Hero Initiative, which he was really into, and a big backer of. But for him, it's just give back, like pay it forward, like, and I think that's kind of reflected in how he was. I think the artist that just kind of brought, like, he's the one that brought Justice League and Avengers together. Right. Like, I don't think any other artist could have done it. But yeah, it's hard to sit there and know that somebody who's been such an impact in the comic book community is, he's pretty much going to be leaving us very soon.
Yeah. And anyone who's met George, you will not find anyone with a bad word to say ever. And if there was such a job as ambassador of comics, or like commissioner of comics, like they have in baseball, football and stuff, like the two people you should have for that job would be Stan and George. So do you guys have a I don't want to put everybody on the spot. We didn't prep for any of this like answers. So if nobody has an answer, that's okay. You can pass. But you guys have a favorite Perez? Like either series, miniseries, run, issue?
I mean, personally, I haven't read a lot of the stuff he's done. I've seen a lot of the art. I flipped through a lot of the art just to kind of like look at it. I think the relaunch of the Avengers, like the Heroes Return, Heroes
The
Reborn,
one Ryan was talking about?
yeah, the one Ryan was talking about. I think I read that was probably the most I had read of Perez's work all like together. But yeah, I mean, it's still just, I mean, the biggest stuff, I mean, it's the Crisis stuff is the stuff I've read entirely, and it has such memorable moments from that with, the death of Supergirl to, the like just disintegration of Barry Allen, to just everybody going up against the NA Monitor. Like there is just so much stuff in that one series that you're just like, from the little details, with them talking to even the grand epic battles. So I still haven't read Justice League for Avengers because I haven't gotten around to sitting down and reading it. Like, it's one of those like, I flip through it every time I see a couple of the issues. I'm like, man, I need to sit and read this. And I just never get around to it. But yeah, it's when you pick up a book by Perez, you're reading a book by Perez. That's at least, something I can say about it.
Yeah.
I was going to offer a really offbeat one. I don't know that it's my favorite, but I love the fact that it was so different and so wacky. I don't know if you guys remember his creator-owned Saxon Violins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I believe it was Marvel that published it. But it was just like a 4-issue mini, but it was just the craziest thing I've ever seen out of George Perez. Short of like what he did, was it Crimson Angel after that, I think, or something. But I really enjoyed it just because it was so offbeat, so different. Seeing George do weird, different styles, different character interpretations, and I believe he wrote it too. So it was all just George. So I don't know. I really enjoyed that one just because it was so different.
Yeah, if anybody wants to look it up, I think it's spelled SACHS for Sax. Is that right?
Yeah.
Charlie, we've been tap dancing for you to think of one.
Oh, it's not even that hard to think of one in terms of this, just because, I mean, I've talked about how influential and eye-opening like the Infinity Gauntlet was for me when that book was coming out, and that will always be sort of the first thing that kind of comes to mind to me because of that. But then it's kind of a weird way that I feel like there's sort of those stepping stones which all culminate in the Jla Avengers for me. Like he kind of, because he touched such big events, it's very easy to kind of draw a parallel between building up to that big crossover event and that kind of stuff. It kind of gives him his own little trilogy between the two companies, which is kind of interesting. And that kind of stuff makes it my favorite.
So that Saxon violins is it was Peter David wrote it.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, and it's co-developed with Perez. So him and Perez worked on it, and it was first published by Marvel's Epic imprint.
Yeah, what is that? 90s?
1993.
Yeah.
DC did put out a collected version of it in 2006. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you don't want to be like, well, now can we get this stuff that we haven't had in print, like of his? Like it sucks that we have to say that, but it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's like, a lot of people haven't experienced because it's just out of print or you can't really find it.
I know there's been a huge groundswell when it comes to sort of the fans calling for not just reprintings of some of this stuff, but reprintings to give his family additional support and like donate to various institutes and charities and that kind of stuff. Like the fans really, really want the big two to step up, not to cash in on it, but to do something in response to it.
Yeah, like,
Put good back into the world kind of thing from what he's brought to the industry.
The JLA Avengers book is the obvious choice for that.
Oh yeah, that's the one that most people are kind of rallying around.
Wow.
Just do a new printing of that to both help his family and also make it clear that it's towards cancer research or whatnot.
Yeah. While you guys were giving your choices, I was clicking through some Perez like cover galleries, trying to think of an answer that's not Crisis. But it's just such a memory, like there's the Green Avengers cover with Taskmaster that everybody knows, Perez. Oh, there's the Green Lantern comic I brought to school in like 5th grade for silent reading period, Perez. There's the Marvel Fanfare, that Black Widow cover, Perez. There's Logan's Run. There's The Lonely Place of Dying, that Batman story with, I think, Tim Drake's origin, if I remember right.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I'm going to have to go with my answer is Crisis, but just to say something different, I'm going to go with the History of the DC Universe miniseries that came out right after Crisis, 2 issues. That's the book that I carry around to cons, but it was originally 2 like Baxter comics. And it's just this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's fine as far as that goes, but the art is just pristine, so perfect. That's my favorite period of Perez, like late Teen Titans through Crisis into Wonder Woman. Just untouchable. Mount Rushmore, that era of him, untouchable.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, just with the amount the impact that he's had on the industry when he was working and even after, is just amazing. I know, you can see a lot of like in a lot of creator artists now, you see them trying to their influence from Perez, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just like, you're like, man, it's.
Hey, Charlie, do you have that giant Crisis poster by Alex Ross and Perez?
Nope, I don't.
I don't either. Just because I don't have 5 feet of horizontal wall space to hang it.
I'm staring at it right now.
Posters like that.
Oh wait, Lane, you have it?
Yeah, it's on my wall, staring right.
That thing is just fantastic. That is so great.
Yes.
I have the small one.
I have
that's
the calendar. I might have a calendar with it, but
I used to have a Perez poster. Do you guys remember there was a Perez Avengers poster where it was like half the classic team and then the new? It was like everybody who'd ever been an Avenger, like running at a big crowd shot.
I think so.
Yeah, it's long gone. I mean, that thing probably came out in the 90s, I want to say, and it has the 2 Avengers logo at the bottom, like the Silver Age logo, and then the A with the arrow across the middle.
Oh yeah, it's like the second thing that comes up on a Google search.
Sorry, Charlie, I stepped on you. Go ahead. My bad.
No, I'm just honestly thinking about you already talked a little bit about it, that transition between following characters to creators. And he was on the sort of short list of creators that really started to take on a life beyond the characters they were working on. And there weren't that very, like, obviously as Image spun off and that kind of stuff, there was more and more sort of emphasis. But I really want to say, other than like Stan and Kirby, he may have been one of the earliest ones that like the name started holding some recognition for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? I've got 2 other nominees. Just clicking more through more covers. The Alan Moore, the Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Perez inking Kurt Swan on the part 1 of that is just divine. It's so good. and the Action Comics 600, the Superman Wonder Woman story, where I believe it is Perez pencils inked by Byrne, but it might be the other way around. That art that's like my childhood gold, like rolled onto the page right there. That's like brain melting. Like, how could this happen? Universes are colliding. Like, at 7 years old, I couldn't have handled that team up. But as an older reader, it was just great. I think it's Action 600.
Oh, didn't he also do Future Imperfect? That Hulk story?
With the Maestro, right?
Yeah,
Maestro,
did he do?
yeah.
Yeah, he did that, right?
I think so, because
Pretty
there's a
sure,
ton
yeah.
of Perez Maestro commissions out there. So it's kind of random that people would ask for that if he had no connection to it.
Yeah, because it's that he does that scene in that everyone loves out of that book, the trophy room, right?
Jim, you mean?
Yeah, well, Jim loves that, but
Everyone.
yeah, everybody loves that. Like, I just opened up that shot. Yeah, it's got like everything in it, right? like it's just he just puts so much stuff into into like the scenes. It's just amazing.
Oh, yeah. Look at that double page spread from Crisis where all the heroes are on the Monitor's satellite.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable, that scene. It's just like thinking of drawing that is just literally unbelievable, as in I can't believe it.
They've never released a oversized edition of Crisis or like Infinity Gauntlet of his art, right? Like the no.
I mean,
what's the
Crisis
other,
has an absolute.
right? But I'm trying to think. What was the Artifact edition thing? What's the other Artisan edition or
Monster.
Oh, Artisan, Artifact, and Artist are the three.
yeah?
I don't think
Marvel, they have, like,
Perez
the-
has one of those, though.
The monster size, and then they have like the platinum edition and that stuff. But I don't think. I mean, other than Omnibus, I don't think they've done any like oversized for Gauntlet.
I'd love to see them release just the pencils and inks for like Infinity Crisis on Infinite Earths, or Infinity Gauntlet, just to see his raw art.
Oh man, I'm looking at a shot of his. Is it his? Like he did the cover for Justice League 200.
Oh yeah, that issue is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just like.
I mean, that cover's great, but the whole issue is great.
Yeah.
Anybody who hasn't read, there's my random pick of the week: Justice League 200. Because they brought back every artist who had worked on the Justice League. Except they couldn't get Neil Adams for the Batman Green Arrow story, so they just subbed in some scrub named Brian Bolland. And it's like, that is a great issue.
Some scrub named Brian Bolland.
Yeah, see? But I'm saying that's how far, like, that's considered the scrub-in guy.
Yeah.
That issue is great.
Oh, is that why we sold that Wallywood's Thunder Agents? Because George Perez did it?
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lane knows what I'm talking about. He listed it on eBay.
No, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yes.
And I think I would say this, and I don't, if you guys agree or disagree, I think that when you see a lot of artists who are great, like let's just pick in this period because 80s, who are great, let's say in the 80s, and they're still working in the 2000s, you go, man, that guy's really lost something off his fastball.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of it's still competent, but it's not what it was. But I think with him, his style changed certainly from Crisis to like his return on the Avengers, but it was still really, really, really good.
Mm-hmm. No, like George Perez has always had. I mean, even when he was doing, just those Infinite Crisis things, right? He wasn't like, his covers on those, right, were really, really good. I mean, but you're going up against, right, oh, there's a Jim Lee cover and a George Perez cover, right? Like there's two distinctly different, like types of things to follow, but you're just like, there's so much in each of the, issues that he did those variants for, right?
Just gotta buy them both.
Yeah. You just gotta buy them both, man.
So do you guys have the not you, Brock, because maybe you have it. I was assuming you didn't. Do you guys have the Jla Avengers Absolute book?
I do. I dragged my feet on getting it for a long time, but I finally got it after it had been out of print for a little while at a con for cover price, and that was very significant when I finally picked it up for me.
A smart move.
I have the Absolute Crisis on Infinite Earth, so I have that one.
Lane, do you have Jla Avengers?
I had the issues. I didn't buy the any collected edition. I wasn't a big person to buy Absolute unless it was a really, really big series for me. So.
And I mean, the only reason it took me so long is because it's those 4 issues, and it was kind of expensive to do sort of the transition to the hardcover, but it was also on that list of when it became cheap, and then it never became cheap, then it went out of print, and then I'm like, cover price it is. And you guys know me well enough to know how hard it is for me to go, I will pay cover price.
Yeah, so in that, I don't have the Absolute, unfortunately. Charlie, in the back of that book, do they print the pages from the aborted 80s version? The penciled pages?
I think some of that might be in there, yeah.
Because I think there's 10 pages from the 80s. And people can find them online. If you've never seen them, Google this, because that is, look, I enjoyed the Kurt Busiek one that they finally made. But that one that got canceled, like it's controversial why, but that one that got canceled, that is my favorite era of Perez. And so I look at those pages and those teams, like what the Avengers and JLA look like in like 1984, and I just go, that's a heartbreaker. That may be my number one heartbreaker of never produced comics, that original version. Maybe the story would have been crap. I don't know. But, that art. Anybody who hasn't seen them, if you can find them. They're posted on different blogs. Just Google it.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple of them like, damn, those are good.
I believe at one time Rob Liefeld owned all of those pages.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
He bought them as a lump from George.
I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, it would be nice if DC and Marvel would just do something like, I mean, with the Hero Initiative stuff and give us, like just JLA Avengers, or even just reprint his stuff, with that, like that thing in mind where it's like, these are we're doing these limited editions to give back to, the Hero Initiative or other things and stuff like that, something where it's, most of the proceeds are going to go help other creators. Cause I mean, that was mainly what the Hero Initiative stuff was about, was that helping creators that were, basically kind of didn't, kind of just brushed to the side, didn't have anything, like the companies didn't take care of them, and they kind of just had medical issues and financial issues and stuff like that. So, but who knows?
I'm sure they'll do something. I mean, DC's already doing, right now, they've already announced the JP Leon, the Fat Cat special. They're doing something for him in that. So I think it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to stop clicking through these covers, you guys. It's just, you know what is another one that's definitely worth somebody's time if you're a Perez fan, is just to look at them, is the Who's Who covers.
Yes.
Those wraparound covers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is just eye candy to the nth degree.
They just did an omnibus of that.
Yeah, and the cover for the omnibus is like taken from different covers. It's like a collage.
Yeah.
But looking at the covers themselves, that is definitely worth anybody listening to this bored at work, have some downtime, whatever, and you just want to like bathe your eyes in goodness, look at the George Perez Who's Who covers. They are awesome.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. I'm looking. I popped over to Reddit, and yeah, they have that kind of cut together Who's Who omnibus, and this is the best part. It's a Who's Who omnibus Volume 1. Like, they're most likely going to give us a Volume 2. God, this image is huge. Ugh.
Well, anyway, we can't really say R.I.P. Just wish him luck and hope for the best.
Yeah, I think one of these things, like what you hope is that, you know, his remaining time is spent how he wants it. It's positive. It's, you know, it brings people together. It like you said, you know, just it brings the community together. And maybe we all can, you know, appreciate things a little bit more while we have them versus, you know, putting that stuff off. So, but yeah, man, we need to stop clicking through.
I told you it's a trap. It's the best kind of trap, but just not ideal for when you're recording a show.
Exactly. But
well, should we transition over to the con?
Well, I have a quick question for you, Kevin. Have you gotten George Perez's signature on that book?
So that book came signed by Wolfman and Perez, pre-signed.
He cheated.
I know. So no, I haven't. I've seen him since I've owned that book, but I've never gotten him because it's kind of like, hey, do you want to double sign this? Now today, maybe a different answer, but I've always just kind of, I don't want to say taken him for granted, but there's a page, like a book plate in the front of that's got like the numbered edition, what number it is out of however many they did, and Wolfman and Perez.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a long way of saying yes and no.
So it's basically what you're saying is potentially we need to see about having the internet get this to him to sign somehow.
Man, I'm not putting that thing in the mail. Are you kidding me? I've trusted one person with that book who's not named Kevin, and that person is on this show right now.
So are we going to go fund you to Florida if he does a con signing?
Well, God, I mean, imagine Perez at a con signing now with the jackals who would be out, knowing that this is probably your last chance to get something by him.
Yeah.
I almost don't even want to be a part of it.
You're just depressing me, Kevin.
Sorry. It was so cheery before that. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but like the idea of him being able to go out and see his fans and that kind of stuff is a very uplifting idea or picture. And then you just had to drop some reality into it.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
see,
I'd love to be a part of it. I'm just saying, like, if you announce ahead of time anything that you want signed by this creator, you may never have another chance. Plan accordingly.
Yeah. But the thing is like you're going with something that is a story, that's something that's connection. Like this is something right up George's alley. Like he would love to re-sign this basically for you. You know, it's not like you're the guy with the long box walking up to a table going, "Funk, I really like your work. Could you sign these, please?"
Well, yes, true. I wouldn't say that. Point made.
But again, we want we hope that the community is the best, but we know that the community does have bad apples.
But I don't know. I mean, if it's well managed, I don't necessarily think we have to concern ourselves too much on sort of like. Yeah. I guess the way I kind of look at it is, as much as Ryan wanted to say we've never quite had this, I remember the time before Stan passed, and I remember going to a con doing the whole, this is probably the last chance I'm going to have to get like a picture or something signed.
Yeah.
Making sure I did that. Like, this may be the first time that it's 100% sort of said out loud, but there's a number of people that I've seen at cons and stuff where I'm like, they're not like, So everybody knows I'm a big Doctor Who fan and stuff. And the last interview I saw that Tom Baker did gave me that same kind of weird, like, he was looking very thin and not as sort of lively as I'm kind of used to, which immediately just made me go, yeah, if he goes to a Gallifrey or something, that might be the last Gallifrey he goes to, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a very odd place to get into with some of these creators, because Ryan's right. We've lost so many creators with nothing said ahead of time. And a lot of them stopped doing cons years and years and years ago. So it's almost like a kind of like out of the public eye. Therefore, you don't really think about how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is one of those cases where I actually do really appreciate the fact that he is engaging the fans the way he always has. He's not as disengaged as some other people have been in the past. Like his breaking the news was almost as much a love letter to the fans as it was a breaking the news kind of thing.
Well, let's hope that we look back on this conversation 5 years from now and George is still with us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you've met him numerous times and got him to sign it.
And he got to feel the love from everybody, and the doctors are baffled, and all of this was, I don't want to say a waste of time, because everybody got to share how much George meant to them, and means. I shouldn't say past tense. That's kind of all we can leave it at, right?
Yep, that's pretty much all we can really do.
Honestly, I'm just, as much as I agree with you, it would be great if we could look at that 5 years from now. I'm just hoping he gets those final experiences he obviously wants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we...
As it was already kind of, I don't think it was brought up on the podcast, but like the way he phrased it with like have a chance to hug everybody and that kind of stuff is just like a little heartbreaking given the situation we find ourselves in at the moment, where I'm really hoping he gets to have the experiences he wants. I don't know that there won't be some things in place that limit what he can do and can't do and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Between his health and the pandemic and stuff, there's just so much in play. But that being said, I'm really hoping he gets the goodbye with the fans that he's looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, let's if this starts a Perez con where it's just like fan and creator fun.
If you had a Perez con that included every artist who's been influenced by Perez, you'd have the greatest artist alley in the history of conventions.
Oh yeah.
But then wouldn't those same artists also be in line to meet George?
Right.
So there would be an artist alley.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They would have to go first, and then artist alley would fill up.
Well,
I think he's one of the few people who could pull it off. Even have a like Perez con, and it would just fill up with people, like not just fans, creators and that kind of stuff who would want to be there for. Not just sort of appearing at somebody else's final con, but being able to sort of set the way he wants to do it. That would be kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another tribute, right? It's another way to say thank you to George, and especially all the artists who've been influenced by him all these years. It's just another way to say thank you. And I don't see how all these, so many artists will probably jump at that chance. I mean, I would. I don't,
Well, there's no easy transition to another topic, Brock.
I don't think there is. I mean,
but we kind of have it open to say, hey, speaking of conventions,
there was a convention last weekend that I think somebody here attended.
There were 2 conventions last weekend.
There was 2 conventions,
and there's one that's just ending right, like hours ago.
Oh, okay. Well, what the one we're talking about specifically is Emerald City. Which for people that don't know is a comic book convention that is up in Seattle, Washington. It normally takes place in March. But due to COVID, they've had to delay it, and they didn't want to delay it anymore. And so they did it, this past, weekend. And Lane attended, he flipped the coin with Kevin for the special edition for San Diego or Emerald City, and he got Emerald City. So we're gonna see if he had a better if he has like a better Emerald Con December experience. So how was it, Lane?
It was a lot like what Kevin mentioned. The crowds are so much lower. Although ironically, I don't know why, but I felt like Sunday was actually the most packed. I don't know why, but it just could be imagination, or maybe there's just less other activities going on that day, so like everybody was on the floor. But yeah, Sunday was pretty packed compared to the other 3 days. Friday was, or Thursday, the first day was actually pretty light. Overall, it was, well, as a con goer, it was great. There was hardly any lines for anything. Things were pretty spread out. I mean, we're talking 10-foot aisles in every section.
Oh wow!
And like pretty much only like maybe 4 tables in a group, so it's just little small pockets with lots of space to move around. It was great in that respect. Everybody pretty much wore masks everywhere. Yeah, I mean, like for the most part, it was a great thing. I would say probably the only issues with it were just communication issues. This, I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact they didn't make a lot of decisions until the last minute. Like they changed like how they were going to handle the COVID checks, and like they moved the location of the COVID check to a different location. The place where the celebrities were signing were in a different location. They didn't announce that until the week of the con. So it was mostly just the like kind of growing pains of an early convention, but it's just, I think it's just because there's so many people involved and a lot of things changing so fast all the time. So
yeah, and it's coming into like you said, they're adding like they have COVID restrictions. They have things they need in place. Like Kevin was talking about San Diego special edition where he got in line thinking he was going to get his thing and forgot that he had to go through COVID, like the COVID checkpoint, and that added time onto his I'm not going to be in the con anytime like when I want to.
Yeah, similar stories. I mean, I did a lot of, well, I took the train, so I had a lot of time to kind of sit and read ahead of time. So like I was reading up on all the reports. They posted a lot to Instagram and Twitter, so they kind of kept us informed about where things were and how to handle it when we got there. But there was still a lot of miscommunication, and like when I was there, a lot of people were still running around a little confused about where they were supposed to go, where to go first, where to go second, what do they need, that kind of thing. But like I said, overall, I didn't have any issues with it really. If anything, like the biggest issue that I feel like is like they still need signs on the outside telling us where to go. For the entrance, the main entrance, is just a bunch of guards. You always have to keep asking the guards, where's the entrance now? They just point different directions on different days, depending on when you're lining up. They just need a couple signs, but other than that, it was pretty smooth. There goes Cat.
So
Overall,
Lane, how did you find, I know you had certain targets, people you wanted to find and things you wanted to get there. Were you able to effectively do that, or I should say more effectively do that than in a regular year? Or was there no difference in that kind of thing?
Ironically, okay. So I had two major targets, and then I had a couple minor targets. The two big targets. So I went into the hall. My first biggest target was a new artist named Rose Besh. That actually turned out to be a big mess up. So I knew ahead of time that she was going to be at like this one booth called Frankie's Comics, but Emerald City erroneously labeled Frankie's booth in the wrong location on the map and in their program.
Ooh.
So when it opened, I ran straight to the booth and it wasn't there. And I'm like, okay, where am I supposed to go? So like I was looking up on the online maps again. It all said the same place. I asked around, no one knew what it was. So basically, I just started making a beeline, just running down the aisles, trying to find it. And I actually ended up. It took me about another 20 minutes, and I found it in the back. She wasn't there yet, so at least on the bright side, it wasn't a hit to the plans. um, she actually showed up a bit late, so in that respect, I was able to pretty much get everything I wanted done. Um, like while I was waiting for her, I went up and got my first one, which is I wanted to meet Sean Gordon Murphy. I went upstairs, and he had already arrived, and basically I got a whole bunch of stuff signed. Got to talk to him within the first 10 minutes. After that, came right back down, and then when she arrived, I just talked to her. Um,
Nice.
So I pretty much got a lot of stuff done on the first day. Yeah, I mean the second day was reserved for getting some celebrity autographs. Went in first early in the morning. The timing was a little off because I think they accidentally posted the wrong times. They posted when the doors opened, not when the signers were there.
Mm.
So it just means we had to wait a little longer. But after that, the room was that's probably the only thing that was a little weird. Where that was the smallest room. Like considering there's like 20 or no 15 signings or 15 celebrities they're signing. Um, so you're talking 15 lines of people waiting for them in this
Mhm.
tiny room. And so like it really didn't. We were supposed to space them, but you could tell people were not spacing out. So as far as like protocols, that was probably the only most nervous part about it. But like it went pretty fast after that. Like some celebrities like to talk a bit, you know how that is. But I was pretty much able to go in and out and just like going to each celebrity. Maybe I had to wait a few times, but in and out in like a half an hour or less with each one.
Hmm.
Really fast, really smooth. Like as far as me planning, I had everything done on the second day, and then third day everything was smooth except my only hiccup was a friend had asked to get a celebrity signature from Hayden Christensen, and his line was I don't know why, but his was the craziest. Um, there was like a 2 hour delay on his line.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, this isn't the first con he's done, but he's only really re-engaged with the fan base in cons in the last year or two.
Is that why?
Yeah,
Uh,
because
Yeah,
I
because
know he made a return to like the big Disney one last time they did it, or the time before. But yeah,
yeah,
he was completely checked out from everything for a long time because of
uh,
everything.
the fan
well, I
backlash.
think I think it was overall fan reaction to those movies, like put him kind of at a distance from it. But now what's happening is all of the people that like started with the prequels, or that was kind of their introduction to Star Wars, they're craving like him to come out and be there. So there's more of there. It's a the audience is more receptive of him now than it was you know before. Like, yeah, I mean, how many little kids are you going to have at a con that are going to have like enough money to go to a con to have Hayden Christian sign? Not many, but 20 somethings, 30 somethings that have watched his movies. Yeah, you're going to have plenty of those that have the money for it. So
True. But I mean, like, I guess I was just surprised because, like you said, okay, I know there's a lot of Star Wars fans, and that's the bulk of it. But he hadn't done that many other films, and like, I don't know, just me personally, I thought, like, for example, John Cena was there. I figured the John Cena line would be like twice as long as Hayden's. It was completely the opposite direction.
Yeah, but
Um,
I just think it has to do with the fact that Cena's been doing cons a lot longer.
True. I wasn't sure if he did signatures though, but yeah, it was just a surprise. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
it wasn't bad at all. Just
Wait, did you get Hayden?
for a friend, yes, not for
Yeah.
myself.
No, that's what I just meant. Were you successful in getting to the front of that line?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it took
nice.
2.5, 3 hours.
Oh, man, you're a good friend. Damn.
Well, I mean, that, like I said, that was the longest line of the whole con. I mean, other than the little mix up on the first day where they had the wrong times, I only waited in that line an hour and a half because they posted the times off by an hour. But every other line I was like in and out, like I said, within 30 minutes. And yeah, I wish all cons were like this. I'll put it that way. I don't know how San Diego was, but it was really nice.
You've been to Emerald before, right, Lane?
Once or twice?
I was going to say only once.
Well, I remember we were supposed to go in 2020. I remember that reservation.
Yeah, I had my plane ticket. It was the week after the shutdown.
Yeah.
Like, we were still ready to go until they shut it down.
Right. I remember that. I remember emailing creators when people were like, some people were canceling. I remember emailing creators and being like, are you planning to still go or not go? I'm just trying to get a tally of, never dreaming that the con wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And then obviously the whole world turns upside down.
And then March 12th hit.
Yeah. That con was like mid-March, I think. Or
no, it was supposed
20
to be
something.
It was a 20.
Yeah, something like 20 something.
Yeah, it was either going to be 20, like the 21st, or it was going to be the 28th. I think it was the weekend of the 28th.
But see, Brock, that was going to be an important con historically, that 2020 Emerald City, because that was going to be the first time I shared a room with Lane and Toby at a convention.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. You were going to share a room with the two of them.
Yep.
So what you're saying is you dodged a bullet.
Charlie, I'm saying the gods may have been looking out for me this one time. I don't know. You've been there before. You're the veteran of this.
Well, that's it. Like, Charlie hasn't been to, like, Charlie, Emerald was your jam.
Yeah. I mean, Emerald was I always equate things in a way to like San Diego. And San Diego, when I started going there, was you could walk in on any day and get a ticket, and then it transitioned away from that to, okay, you have to buy your tickets within a few weeks because they'll actually sell out before the con, to sell it instantly. And there was always that kind of like, as it got bigger, I kind of felt like it became harder to manage your time effectively at the con because more and more creators no longer had tables of their own and all that kind of stuff. And Emerald City was a very interesting con in the way that it grew to the point where it had everything I wanted, but didn't grow to a point where it had the downside that I started to experience at San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, because you transitioned from San Diego more towards Emerald, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. Because the way I always kind of talk about cons is as they get bigger, the negatives go up, and while the positives also go up, they don't go up at the same rate.
Yeah.
So you kind of have the diminishing returns there. As they get more expensive and more hassle, my enjoyment of the actual con goes up, but not at the rate that the hassle's going up.
Mm-hmm.
And Emerald City was that like sweet spot for me. And that's actually the thing that I'm most curious about when it comes to sort of like the cons resurging, because I do understand the like farther stuff apart and that kind of stuff. But I am very curious, like, how is the turnout of creators and that kind of stuff? Because I mean, obviously a lot of them are still going to be there and whatnot. But I kind of feel like Emerald City especially always had Zub, always had Gail Simone, always had a couple of other like people, and like Snyder was there sometimes, and like it was one of those cons that just really worked well with creators, and creators wanted to be there, it seemed.
Yeah.
So I was curious what the turnout was this time, because I didn't look at the full, like, when they announced this and like the satellite San Diego kind of thing, like I liked the fact that they were doing them, but they kind of felt like we're going to have a mini con before the end of the year. This isn't the real San Diego. This isn't the real Emerald City. Not to mention the prospect of going to Seattle in December or end of November or any of like the winter time thing is a very different experience than the idea of going there in March.
Yeah, let me go up to a place that's going to like most likely rain while I'm trying to
Well,
carry paper around.
This was one of my big questions for Lane, aside from what he got in the haul, was when I was doing that coin flip, I was like, okay, it's going to be C2E2, Chicago in December, Seattle in December, or San Diego in November. I'm like, well, there's an obvious winner on the weather front of those three choices. So what was the weather there for the time you were outdoors, at least?
Actually, it was not bad. It was supposed to rain halfway through, according to forecast, but first day was dry. Second day, it sprinkled in the morning. That was pretty much it when I came out. But every time I came out, it was dry. It didn't rain until the third day. It rained a little bit on the way back, but it wasn't like hard rain. It was just casual rain. And then it rained a bit on the last day, but pretty much I had given up and gone back to the hotel. So I didn't really get hit by the rain much at all. But I was also jokingly going to say that I think Charlie also has to he looks at Emerald better, because if you think about the fact that he's paying for the hotel, at Emerald he gets to sleep on the hotel, where at San Diego he sleeps on the grass.
Hey, I never minded sleeping on the grass. In fact, some of my favorite stories involve crashing on the grass at the end of the night.
I distinctly remember a drunk Joss Whedon story was on this podcast at one point. So.
Yes, but it's painful when you're paying for the hotel and you're still sleeping on the grass.
Yeah, that's true.
That's okay. My family was still using the hotel.
Right, an empty room makes it worse.
But
so
yeah,
all in all, Lane, are you? Was it worth the time and money and effort to get there for this particular version?
I think for me, I would say yes. Like I said, I didn't really put too much into. I made small goals, in other words. So, like I said, I made two big artists that I wanted to meet, which is Rose Besh and Sean Gordon Murphy. I got to meet them both. In fact, I met Sean Gordon Murphy 3 days in a row because I went back to him every day. And then I got to say hi to Dustin. He showed up on Saturday, so I said hi to him. And then I got a couple of new pieces of art, and I got to meet another old Dark Horse artist that I'd been kind of trying to track down, but his name is very generic. So like every time I would find his name in a book, I would think it's him, and then it would be someone else. And this was the first time it turned out to actually be him. So I was a little surprised there. So that was just a small surprise. If you're wondering, his name is Chris Warner. He's the co-creator of Barbed Wire, but he worked on Team 7 books for Wildstorm. But there's another artist named Chris Warner at other cons, and I keep running to the wrong one. just by chance.
The wrong Warner. Damn it.
But yeah, like I said, I made small things, and then getting a couple of autographs from celebrities that I wanted to meet. Like I got to meet Katana, the actress that's Katana, and the girl from The Boys.
Oh,
and
nice.
then I met the voice actress of Korra from Legend of Korra. A couple other voices. So like I didn't really make a huge list, and then I tried to do a little bit of shopping there. If anything, I would say the shopping is probably the weakest there, because Emerald being very artist alley oriented, the vendor hall, exhibitor hall part is a little on the small side, especially with Funko taking up so much.
Historically, they've had great shopping at Emerald, so I'm guessing they just didn't have the turnout.
Yeah, or I guess I should say shopping for comics was really weak. The comics section was very small. I would say most of it was Gold and Silver Age, which I don't collect, unfortunately, and so that kind of also hindered a bit. But there were plenty other dealers, but there was mostly like prints, Funko, toys, collectibles, that kind of thing.
Now, Lane, did you feel like you missed out on the Funko experience because you didn't go to the San Diego special edition?
No, because the Funko event at Emerald City was bigger.
Oh, it was? Oh,
yes, shit. And I kind of figured, because Funko's in Everett, Washington, which is about a 45-minute drive from the convention center.
Yeah.
I went there prior, but I didn't get a ticket to the event, which I actually didn't care about because I don't really care too much for the event itself. But I did get into the drawing to get into the booth, so I did actually was able to get into the Funko booth itself, and
Oh, nice.
they had these little where every drawing time they would have this little thing where someone got up on stage, one of the podcasters, and did a little giveaway thing where like you basically the more you embarrass yourself on stage, the bigger the prize they give you, and that's
So,
kind of
Layton,
what they
I'm
did.
going to put you on the spot with a question here because I think some people listening may be kind of vaguely aware of this, but so Ryan posted a photo on Twitter of the Funko line at San Diego, like down the sidewalk out in front of the convention center. Could you explain just briefly for people who might not know, why is Funko such a hot shit attraction at conventions? Because I think people just think of, I see a million pops in every store I go into. What's the draw at a con?
Well, mostly money. It's the Funko Pops. They make exclusive versions for the conventions, and it's just a little sticker. It's a special version of the pop. Uh, in most cases, like for example, on the average, they do San Diego. They probably do I don't know, like 60 different new exclusive pops for San Diego every year. Of those 60, like I would say 7 of them to 10 of them are specifically only available at that con or online. So they are the hardest by far to get, and there's usually a limited number of them, like around 2,000 only. So for the most part, it's just people trying to race to get those 2,000 because those 2,000 being limited number will now be worth the most to everyone else, and everybody just wants to flip them or trade them for the value that they suddenly become, which is like typically like $200 within a week. So that sadly is kind of all it really is.
Now, Kevin had a bad experience at San Diego.
Uh-oh.
Did you have a bad experience at Emerald?
Oh, you mean the signage
Yeah,
issue?
just we're leaving it anonymous for the sake of the show. But yes, that's what he means. Did you strike out at all?
There was, if anything, I would say I kind of, it's kind of a strikeout, but not. The only strikeout that I had at the show was I had prepped for one artist to be there. He was on the initial list, but when I got there, his name was taken off the list. His table was taken off the list, and I have a feeling that he double booked or they mistakenly thought he was going to be there because I believe he actually ended up being at C2E2 instead. So minor miss, but like it wasn't really it was just I packed just in case because I had like my big thing for most of the cons is I want to meet someone I've never met before. So he would have been one I hadn't met yet, but I'm hopefully I'll meet him again. He's new and young, so I don't think that'll be a problem. But as far as surprises like that, not really, because like I said, I'm actually more used to that sort of thing. I'm used to seeing prices being pretty high, jumped up, and kind of so I kind of plan accordingly. And I think in my case, especially this show, I was actually willing to pay a little bit more, knowing that we hadn't had much interaction in the last 2 years. So like I actually did just like for the Sean Gordon Murphys, I just wanted to get all my stuff signed so I didn't have to carry it around again. So I just paid the extra to get the extra book signed instead of just doing like he was doing like 5 free and then like $5 for every after that. But yeah, I didn't have any negative experience, so to speak. Or I guess maybe the most negative thing about Seattle to me is as a comic or a nerd convention, the one downside to Seattle is there are very little to almost no places to eat after 8 o'clock that are under like $30 a dinner.
Oh,
It's a bit of a challenge.
So Seattle needs to work on its affordable food options.
Well, I think what he's running into is the late at night, because Seattle has a ton of great food trucks,
Yeah.
and it just may not be something that's an option post con.
I'm actually just wondering if it's a time of the year thing.
Yeah,
It could
Just
be, yeah.
because I know when I've done Emerald City, and Jess and Jordan and I have been wandering around late at night finding Japanese hot dog stands and that kind of stuff has never seemed to be a problem.
right.
Well, I have a feeling a lot of that changed because of COVID, though, because there are a lot of restaurants that are no longer here or were no longer there since the last time I went.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
So I think a lot of it was just restaurants that got hit by COVID and haven't recovered, and
Yeah.
they probably are just waiting for more shows to really kind of come back.
Yeah, I know Emerald City is one that I've really considered going to over the past few years, just because of all the positive feedback that I've heard from people on the podcast and just in general from the community. Because it sounds like a really great experience to go meeting with creators and artists and all of that stuff, where it's not such a chaotic, just mob of human bodies that is San Diego. So maybe one day I'll go, but
Just stay away from the Funko area. You'll be fine.
just I'll be fine. So
I was gonna say I hope it remains the way it has for me, but I'm always scared I'm gonna go one year and there's gonna be that tipping point where it starts shifting the other way.
It's possible. I mean, the bright side is they haven't really brought in a lot of Hollywood yet. I mean, they'll bring in the celebrities, but they haven't brought
No,
in Hollywood.
honestly, the main thing that I would say is sort of a big change is you have a lot of like DC and Marvel people there, but they're at their own tables and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My feel is once like Marvel and DC decide to fully support that con, that's when I will start seeing the shift more.
yeah, you'll lose the creators being at their own tables, and they'll just be like in the blanket of the company that they're with. So they're only
scheduled times
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Like when you talk about getting something signed by Scott Snyder at San Diego, it's either at the DC booth or whatever that other booth is at certain times, or you have to get certain tickets. And that's the only time they're there. And if you want to go see them in a panel, you can go see them in a panel. At Emerald City, if Scott Snyder was there in the past, he'd have his own table. If he wasn't in a panel, he'd be at his own table.
Yeah.
And that's like the big difference for me with Emerald City is like, other than if they happen to be at like a local con or something, there's a lot of creators and stuff that if I want to see them at San Diego, it's a lot more hoops just to have a briefer interaction and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like the ability just to walk up to the table and talk to the creators is the big joy of that show. It makes it very different. That said, I mean, there's still a little bit of that whole. You still have to hit the schedules, even at
Yeah.
Emerald, but it's just not as chaotic. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
less
and most of
panels
the
and
yeah, most of that is just because they're in a panel for an hour on this day or whatnot, or went to go get lunch, or the standard stuff you would sort of come to expect.
Yes. Although I will say that they are slowly getting to that degree, depending on the creator though, because like you're saying Scott Snyder, because Scott Snyder is also rep by Comic Sketch Art, so anybody in that Comic Sketch Art group kind of still falls under the same guidelines where the sketch art guys control everything. They have their schedule, and here's where you can meet, and here's the
So
cost.
prior years with Emerald City, like the closest I could see is some creators would sign at like the Dark Horse booth at certain times, but that just meant they weren't at their table, they were at the Dark Horse table during those times.
Mhm.
I don't remember any, because like the Comic Sketch Arts place I've only ever seen at San Diego. But were they set up that way at Emerald City this year?
They were set up last time we were here too. But they were here again this year, but they're just less artists. Like this year, they only repped Ryan Stegman, Donny Cates, Mirka Andolfo, and the two other, I think, Italian artists that I'm blanking on their names. They're relatively new. But like they had only certain times. You had to pay certain amounts. The usual thing. They were here last time, and they had like 2 rows of people. But it's still easier, yes, at Emerald than it is at San Diego, just because there's, like you said, they don't have the actual booth that they have to worry about, or like there's no other meetings with the DC heads that they have to do business, comic side stuff that behind the scenes that we're missing. Probably the only weird thing this con was just that the whole Jim Lee signing was completely separate from the con. Like you had to buy the tickets, but the Jim Lee signing was actually on a different floor. But I didn't actually involve myself in any of that, so that was all because of Torpedo, though.
Yeah.
So that's your reps getting intervening again. So, but overall, yeah, it was good this year. I mean, I do wish there were more creators there this year, but at the same time, I got to relax, take it easy.
Well, that's what it sounds like. Kevin, both Kevin and you had a good experience with the cons, despite it being COVID, despite it being off times. So
it was a good warm up to get back in the groove. You know what I mean? You don't want to not go to the gym for a year and then hit the heaviest weights. Yeah. This was a good
this is a good kiddie pool con, right? Like yeah. I'm not doing laps in the Olympic size pool. I'm gonna wait around in the kiddie pool first.
Wake those muscles up, those congoing muscles. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Or,
so,
as you said before, maybe if this is a tryout for a off-season con, this wouldn't be a bad one. I mean, they had, just the right amount of, I think, kind of celebrities, right amount of bigger name pros. I mean, they could use a few more pros, but they don't really need them to draw the number of people that came.
Yeah, I saw for next year they're listing it as an August con, which makes me wonder if they're going to slowly shift it back to March or if it's just going to be later in the year.
So, Charlie, what I've been told is next year is the bridge year, kind of the meet in the middle year, because they didn't want to do it in March after doing it in December. Mm-hmm. So, next year is the meet in the middle, and then 23 is supposed to be back to the original schedule.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
I think that's same for C2E2 next year.
Well, if it's in August, I might try to go. That's my birthday month. We'll see. So,
well, thanks for the review, Lane.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
well, Higgins didn't prepare us any listener questions.
Yeah, no listener questions this week. So that's pretty much it for this episode. I don't have an outro thing in front of me, so you guys are going to have to help me out with this.
Follow everyone on Twitter.
Well, that's later on in it. It's that's it's the
we like
to thank our Patreon backers. Yeah. Guys, we appreciate you. Craig Anderson.
Don't start, because if you forget somebody, that's worse.
Oh, I don't
just say all the Patreon backers.
All the Patreon backers. The only reason
and then
I know
Ryan can clean it up later.
He's not going to clean it up later. He's not going to come in.
I mean, next week.
Yeah. To all of our high tier Patreon backers, thank you immensely. I know there's stuff I'm supposed to pull or plug, but I can't remember off the top of my head what that is. You can listen to more of our episodes on comicsconspiracypodcast.com, I believe.
Or the geekbox.net, right?
Does that still exist? Or just go to Apple. You can find us. You can find us on Spotify, all that wonderful stuff. Comicsconspiracy.biz is where you can get books from, Ryan and myself. I will ship them to you and pack them very nicely. You can see my Twitter for that stuff. We'll get to the Twitters later. Yeah, but you can get books or whatever. What else do we talk about on our outros? I have my conspiratorbrock.com, my blog video pull list thing. Ryan says it was such just whatever. Let me get this out and get through it. I have not actually been posting stuff lately. It's been hectic with work and all of that stuff. So I'm probably going to kind of take the rest of December and then the new year kind of come back to it. with maybe something different, but we'll see. But you can find that at conspiratorBrock.com. Charlie does the Wanders in the Infinite.
Fourth dimension.
Shit.
Yes.
Wanders in the Fourth Dimension podcast.
I love how Brock volunteered for this, and he's just making it up as he goes.
I know.
Hey, who cares? Like, I'm having fun with it. Yeah, Charlie, do you want to say anything about your podcast? Like, you're actually here.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we just finished doing the Flux event, so we're going back to monthly for now. So the next one we will cover will be the New Year's special in January.
I have heard that some people are not liking the new Doctor Who stuff.
The current showrunner is very polarizing on the fan base, and in general, I don't know anybody who's like, darn, he's leaving. For the most part, everybody is bummed that Jodie Whittaker is leaving, but perfectly happy that the Chris Chibnall is leaving.
So they're like, just clean it up. We'll get a new one, right?
Well, I mean, that's the thing about Doctor Who is they can try different things. They can do different things. The show is built to evolve and change. But with change means it's not always going to be changed for the good.
Yeah, this is true. Kevin also has this Between the Panels at Fanbase Press. You should go check those out, right? I mean,
you got that right.
You're never here to plug it, so it's like...
Bravo. Well, I don't need to plug it. Ryan reads it. Most recent guest was Jim Mahfood.
Mm-hmm.
And coming up is Ariana Maher, who's gives essentially a TED Talk on the art and business of being a professional comic book letterer.
Oh, nice.
So those are the December guests.
Awesome. You can follow us all on Twitter. There's Ryan Higgins Ryan. I'm Brock Sager. Charlie's Insanity and Chaos. Toby is Toby XI. Kevin is that Kevin Sharp. Thanks for the spot.
I'm golf clapping. What about the store?
The Comics Con store. We even do we still have the Twitter for the boards? Like, remember we had a board account for our comic book boards? I wonder if that still exists.
Well, considering that I've never heard it mentioned, I'm going to guess probably not.
You should follow Ryan's dead account, Roy Flips.
Oh my god!
I don't something. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, you can get some art from his wife, Leanne Hill. LeanneHillArt.com. You can go pick up some prints from her.
And what platform does she sell on?
She sells on Etsy. You go over to Etsy there. It's Etsy shops Leanne Hill Art, I think. I don't know. 500 some of these.
This is too great. This is too great.
No, I know. But yeah, other than that, thanks for listening. There's something about manga machinations or something, I don't know, but that's always
Patreon. That's Patreon related.
I'm really hoping that Ryan listens to this and creates an edited version of this.
I know.
Which just corrects everything you're saying.
He stops it.
Charlie,
Brock was wrong here.
Would you prefer Ryan drops his voice in at each error, or prefers just to chop this off and insert the correct one?
So I would rather he inserts his voice in to correct each, but if he's not going to do that, if he's going to replace it, he has to put the original as a Patreon exclusive.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when you're considering if there are two options, which is the less work for him, it's going to be chop it and put the correct one.
Yeah.
No, that means he has to sit down and actually record, and he doesn't feel like talking right now. He's just going to leave this ending. That's all. That's it.
Okay,
he's going to leave this ending, and nothing else is going to happen. And what's going to happen is I'm going to text him in 2 seconds, if I can find my phone. And say,
we thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you back next week, right?
Oh, yeah, back next week. I guess mute yourselves? I don't just, I guess I'm going to mute. That's what I'm going to do and text him that we're done. Later.
This is where we should put up a poll guessing how long did it take Ryan to come onto the podcast after we let him know we were done.